Welcome to Psychic Frank's Mystery School. Thank you so much for all the support and love. I feel it coming right through the TV set. Um, I'm here the first and the third. Thursdays at 5. Uh, my friends Richard Rance and Nick Feld, they're still on uh, second and the fourth Thursday at Wednesdays at 5, and then Denise Story comes on right after me here with Liberal Buzz, and she's got Shona G on, who's really up and educated on what's going on with the cannabis. Like they said, they're making decisions about us without us, as Omarosa said. Well, we've got a first vowel O temporary. I guess she's, mayor. I like to say temporary in San Francisco with the first vowel O, and and they're very strong-willed people. We're not going to get into that. Okay, there's so much. I have everything organized in front of me here, so it should go smoothly. So of course it won't. But I'm here the first and the third, as I said. I've got. We're going to talk about Virgo. Sun's in Virgo now. Time to tidy up and clean up. Uh, where you live, clean up your crib, and then your body, your inner body, your outer body. Every year around this time, I do a golden seal herb, a 2 week. Edgar Casey said it's a purifier of the blood. I started it around 10 years ago when I was I was very, very sick with liver cancer, and very beginning of it. And boy, when your liver's not right, you just don't feel, nothing feels right, That's why my liver rules my life today. I just bought, I was here early, and I picked up a container of dandelion root tea. It's bitter greens. Yeah, it says right here, gets the juices flowing, gently stimulates the liver, and supports healthy digestion. There was a glimpse on the news. My ears pick up everything, and on every local news station, not only cable but all the NBC, all the local TVs, had a very little snippet of information. So I knew it was a big thing, and I did some research on it, and it seems the global intelligence. The doctors globally came up with the latest statistic that no global study, the journal, it's it's called The Lancet, Lancet. Alcohol was responsible for nearly 3 million deaths in 2016. Any benefits are offset by the high risks of cancer and other diseases. And yet it's through media, and I just don't get it. I don't miss drinking whatsoever, and I don't. But just think about that, and this thing with cigarettes, it's just slow suicide, and. And please work on it. Work on it. If you want a psychic reading, before you spend money on a psychic, if the psychic's worth anything, they're going to urge you to, you got bigger problems. It's funny, people don't understand, by getting rid of a bad, nasty killer habit like smoking tobacco, uh, nicotine. All the other parts of your life fall into place. You go through a healing. It's a wonderful journey. So don't waste money on a psychic reading. And if they tell you anything but that. Um, so, uh, yeah, so no, I'm just thinking of, we're going to talk about Golden Key today. I found, it's an old book from the 1930s. It's called Power Through Constructive Thinking by Emmett Fox. And he's a metaphysician associated with the Unitarian Church. And back in the early 80s, I was really taken with Louise Hay and the Unitarian Church. And I remember there was this classes going on in Sausalito, and I would clean house all day, come home, take care of my dog, then take the ferry to Sausalito, walk to where these classes were, and then I always got a ride home. I did this for almost a year. And then I quit the last 2 weeks before, because I didn't want to become a minister of the Unitarian Church, because I never wanted to have a title. You know, so that's just me, you know. But yeah, I'm not a joiner, especially not a church, you know. But the whole thing with this John McCain, bless his heart. I'm a pacifist. Any pacifist. John Cain was. I respect him for being true to his calling and all that, but he was he was a nightmare for us pacifists. And yet I couldn't help because the funeral was everywhere, and it was beautiful and all that. How I don't understand their Jesus, like I believe I like Jesus and Buddha, the Buddhism, Buddha and Christhood, enlightenment and Christ are the same thing. So you could, instead of calling Jesus Christ, it could be Jesus the Enlightened or Buddha the Christ, But and he was a foreigner. He was a foreigner, man, and Jewish, and didn't speak English. And hang around with prostitutes and lepers and sick people, dressed nice, did healings, got in trouble. He was a pacifist. And yet, it's funny, the other day, the same thing came up 3 or 4 times for me, and that's very unusual. I know the message is coming. That's why I'm taking the time to share this with you. My neighbor moved away and left me a bag of teas, really expensive teas, and this green tea from Japan. Every tea bag on it has printed this beautiful little things. It's organic green tea from Japan, and it says, "The Prince of Peace." And I had just read that the other day on a book about something, and then I heard it on TV, something about the Prince of Peace, and then several times, that, and that's not a few words you hear that often. So I said, okay, it's time. And then as I was watching this John McCain funeral, and all the people, I said, well, maybe. As I said, I'm not going to waste any of my energy while I was trying to figure that out. But when I read later about Ernest Holmes, he mentions Jesus. And I don't want everybody thinking like I've turned into a Jesus freak. I'm a freak on my own. I'm a Frank freak. Like there used to be Judy Tenuta created this comedian wrote a book called Judaism. Okay, they went that away. Malcolm Forbes. I wanted to share something about, he was also very close to Cohen, Roy Cohen, who created Donald Trump. He was a big influence on Donald Trump. And what it says here about Senator Joseph McCarthy, November 14th, 1908 to May 2nd, 1957. And he goes, it's funny, Malcolm starts off with the word, if ever someone prove fickless, Fickleness, flickiness, and Michelle Wolf called Ivana Trump, whatever her name is, the daughter married to the Nazi. Flickless. It's not a good thing. Of political fads, it was Joe McCarthy. He was just 4 years from this. I have here in my hand speech of 1950. He made people's lives miserable. Between McCarthy smeared hundreds of Americans, but never firmly proved even one was a communist. But that wasn't clear at the time, and neither was the crusade personal toll on McCarthy. He was always a drinker, they said, but by 52, the height of his inquisition of the Senate committee chambers, few were whispering McCarthy suffered from alcoholism. McCarthy's speech was occasionally sluggish, and his mood swings grew more abrupt. After the Senate voted to condemn him in 54, McCarthy fell into despair and bitterness. Though still a senator, he would sit at home watching TV, soap operas, and drinking. Once he turned to his familiar Senate hearing chambers as part of the committee investigating him, Teamsters Union. At that, he goes on and on. Then it goes, upon his, so he ended up turning orange and died of liver failure. He was a miserable death, of liver failure. Was being treated for a neurology ward for alcohol abuse, which caused liver failure. Upon his death, flags in the Capitol were lowered half-mast, but remembrance was restrained at best. Yeah, and it says President Eisenhower, who had been so annoyed with McCarthy's harassment that he had announced he wouldn't support his fellow Republicans if McCarthy sought election 58. Extending his profound sympathy to Mrs. McCarthy in the grievous personal loss she had sustained. McCarthy left behind, now this is the punchline here, McCarthy left behind only the legacy of his name. Webster defines McCarthyism as, quote unquote, personal attacks on individuals by means of widely publicized, indiscriminate allegations there, especially on the basis of unsustained charges. And we got Donald Trump now, and I think they'll go in the dictionary now as the Trumpism. They'll get an ism on it. They'll get an ism on that. So I thought that was worth sharing. And there's a book I found called Coercion. It was written by this guy Douglas Rushkoff, and I haven't really gotten into it yet. I skimmed through it. It was August 1999. But what got me was an important book. This is Senator Bob Kerrey, who I have a lot of respect for. It's called Why We Listen to What They Say. And it's really, I just got through it, like, truth never hurts you unless the truth hurts. Then you don't use it. And then the next chapter is all about customers need a rational excuse to justify their emotional decisions, so always include one. David Ogilvy. It really talks about how Madison Avenue, for lack of a better word, they really learned how to manipulate people. So anyway, Bob Kerrey says, an important book, quote unquote, ... a clear warning to Americans who are unaware of the power of words to intentionally mislead the reader, listener or the viewer. Read this book and nobody gets hurt. I love that. There was an old Grace Jones song called Everybody Hold Still, Nobody Gets Hurt. That's a good one. What's going on now? The Golden Key. Let's get to the Golden Key. Man's search for meaning. I just wanted to get to this, and then we're going to get to the Golden Key. It is important to, remember he said earlier that without all these addicts, because despair is suffering without meaning. Yeah, he goes on about, I left you off last time I was here talking about how, this guy spent time in a concentration camp, he lived, graduated with Freud and Jung, he in Vienna at that time, but, Freud, with a pharmaceutical company today, owes everything to Freud. He had a pill for everything. And Jung was just too much of a hippie for the times. I believe he was the first hippie. But this guy hit it right on the head, and he did, he's all paper, research there. But he, on a thing, he talked about that mostly all addicts, this was back in the 50s when they did this research, the turn of the century, they were all meaningless. Life has no meaning. Life has no meaning. And this thing about McCarthy, too, was all about addicts running away from the fear, running away from the self, fear, not knowing how to love the self. I now discover the new affirmation is now. I now discover how wonderful I am. I choose to love and enjoy myself. Alcoholism is all about what's the use? Feeling of futility, guilt, inadequacy, self-rejection. I live in the now. Yeah, a lot of people don't like the now. For some reason, the soul isn't happy in the now. It likes the past. There's a lot of people who, there's only one reason people are bitter, and that's because at that precise moment, they're choosing to look back. That's the only reason people get bitter. So always look at your feet and find something to be grateful for. Repeat the day. Throat chakra rules all the chakras. Like this is the 6th. This will be, most people see this on Saturday night. Yeah, I live in the now. Each moment, remember the soul, there's throat chakra rules all the chakras. So what you say is the rule. It's all about the word. The word is love. Word is God, actually. Jesus, Buddha, these are all inner astronauts, masters of inner space, who connected with their creator and realized they were one. They were made of that. See, so you're going to really enjoy this getting through constructive thinking thing with Emmett Fox. And Google it up. Yeah, there's a lot of people up there. I choose to see my self-worth. Each moment is new. I love and approve of myself, because if you don't, I tell you, honey, nobody else will. And then allergies. I see on these pharmaceutical companies, on these ads now on TV, they're all talking about unless you're allergic. Well, how do you know if you're allergic unless you get a deadly allergy reaction? That happened to me when I had some dental work done. They gave me... And I said to the guy, I said, look, I told you that I couldn't take, I know my body. You wouldn't give me what I wanted, and then you gave me something that made me really sick. I threw up all last night. And he said, well, you had an allergic reaction. I said, oh, don't you mess around with semantics with me. I make doctors cry. I don't go to doctors that often. I have one doctor I've been seeing for the last 30 years. But every now and then, things happen, and I, can't stitch myself up or whatever. Yeah, allergies are about who are you allergic to, denying your own power. Well, see, people who suffer from sinuses, someone real close to you is annoying you. Well, see, that doesn't sell drugs, and marriage counselors wouldn't like that. I don't know. World is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with life. I am safe. I am at peace with life. So getting back to, this is the man's search for ultimate meaning, Victor E. Frankl. So as I said, he's all about, before I spoke of meaningful suffering in terms of sacrifice, which brings to the story, he says, I like to tell my students in order to illustrate how suffering may be stowed with meaning. It's the story of a physician who suffered from severe depression after his wife died. See, back then they didn't give you pills for it; they just let you get through it. I embarked on this. I'll make this very short on Socrates' dialogue with him. That would have happened. What would have happened if he had died first? How much would she have suffered? He answered. How much she would have suffered? He answered. What was now left to me was simply to respond. Your wife has been spared this suffering, and after all, it is you who are sparing her this suffering, to be sure, at the price you now have to survive and mourn her. At the same moment, he could see the meaning of his suffering, but meaning is a sacrifice. There was still suffering, but no longer despair, because despair is suffering without meaning. Ah, that's beautiful right there. When I tell this brief story, I'm also blamed for imposing. He goes, the man on the street knows by virtue the wisdom of the heart. And he goes, Edward S. Scheinemann, Scheinman, proved clear-cut with empirical data relevant issues at hand. Questionnaires included, if and when you are married, would you prefer to outlive your spouse? Would you prefer your spouse to outlive you? The typical male response, in fact, was they chose to die after the wife. And then this is really beautiful. It goes on and on. It is important that this be conveyed that the patients suffering from it. They should know that despair over the apparent meaninglessness of life constitutes a human achievement rather than neurosis. After all, no animal cares whether or not its existence has meaning. It is the prerogative of a man to quest for meaning to his life and also to question whether such meaning exists. This quest is a manifestation of intellectual sincerity and honesty. In particular, it is a challenge of youth to question the meaning of life. However, the courage to question should be matched by patience. We live in this instant gratification world, you know. He didn't need it. People should be patient enough to wait until sooner or later meaning dawns on them. This is what they should do rather than taking their lives or taking refuge in drugs. Yeah, suicide and taking drugs. Yeah, I'm talking bad drugs. Excuse me. All this should be conveyed to man by way of first aid in cases of existential vacuum. To demonstrate how important such first aid might be, I would like to quote Albert Einstein, said, quote unquote, the man who regrets his life as meaningful, the man who regards his life as meaningless is not merely unhappy, but hardly fit for life. Whoa. You going, Albert. Indeed, survival is dependent on direction. However, survival cannot be the supreme value. See, that's where the medical community now, keep them alive, whatever. I've seen so many people, go through the cigarette thing at the end, where they're so pumped full of steroids, they triple in sizes, they're literally unrecognizable. They're attached to all this equipment. I mean, this is like $1 trillion industry, where perhaps if the doctor would have said, find somebody who's going to help you find some meaning to your life, help you deal with your anger, because tobacco is anger. Every time people don't like to see people shoot up all in the mayors wants people to go to Golden Gate Park and shoot themselves up and die, I guess, and put themselves as a landfill. But I'm all about harm reduction. I think that would be a better way to go. And get some therapists out there. Get these people to understand that they're not trash. Like Ed Lee told them, they need to, after he made the homeless, he wanted to get rid of them. Like they were some kind of garbage. Indeed, survival is dependent on direction. However, survival cannot be the supreme value unless life points to something beyond itself. Survival is pointless and meaningless. It is not even possible. This is the very lesson I learned in 3 years spent in Auschwitz and Dachau. Excuse my German there, but these were concentration camps. And in the meantime, it has been confirmed by psychiatrists and prisoner of war camps. Only those who were oriented toward the future, toward a goal in the future, toward a meaning to fulfill in the future, were likely to survive. And I think that this is not only true of the survival of individuals, but also holds for the survival of mankind. Wow, this is not light stuff. I hope I wit your whistle to find this guy. It's Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning, Viktor E. Frankl, a psychological exploitation of the religious quest. I always say the only thing I'm religious about is smoking weed, but hey, that's a start, I think that this is not only true. It says, for there is hope for mankind's survival only as long as people will arrive at the awareness of common denominators and axiological terms. That is to say, common denominators in what they feel makes them make their lives worth living. President Jimmy Carter said, we all love nature. We all love nature. That's a common denominator. But see, we got the fat cats in there who don't like, who I don't know, they're going to be Armageddon somewhere. Where I guess they'll have better trees, or I don't know where they're, there's no better there than here. And especially now where paradigms are shifting with the communication evolution, we're seeing the shadow of it, but it's also going to, we know what's going on in parts of the world all over the place now. So we can make up for the two evolutions before, the agriculture and industrial, that we've got so much nuclear waste now. We've got to start working on just finding ways to get rid of it. That's something to get rid of. We don't get rid of people, we get rid of nuclear waste. Uh, but God also, what we need is not only the belief that one God, but also the awareness of one mankind, the awareness of the unity of humanity. I would like to call it non-anthropomorphism or whatever. There is survival value in the will to meaning, as we have seen, but as to mankind, there is hope for survival only if mankind is united in a common will to common meaning. In other words, by the awareness of common tasks. In the proper paper quoted previously, Carolyn Wood, sheriff, reports the results of experiments with children in whom group aggression had built up. However, once they were united by the common task of dragging a carriage out of the muds, the kids forgot to live out their group aggressions. Let us learn the lesson. I remember years ago, during the height of some kind of the last war, it's been going on 16 years, 17 years, they had these soldiers who were made to help a town by digging gardens and wells and rebuilding the rubble. And they had these kids, these young men. I call them kids. When you're close to 70, you can call people in their late teens, early 20s kids. And these bubbas were saying, hey, I joined the Navy, I joined the Marines to kill people, man. I didn't join the Navy, I didn't join the Marines to do this crap, I actually saw this on all the network news. They showed these young men, I guess ex-cons who, I don't know how they got in, how they even got, well, anyway, life, we know so many ways to kill people, but nobody knows life is still a mystery. And yet, so we're waking up now. We're waking up. So now, as I said, we got 7 planets in Earth. Practicality, Mercury in Virgo. How we communicate now, how we talk to ourselves, our inner dialogue, our inner critic. We need to give him his walking papers now. Look in the mirror now. Like I'm getting some kind of an eruption. I don't know what I ate, but a few weeks ago I'm getting something on my face. And at 70, I still have to deal with it. And then I opened this drawer. I was looking for some notes and something I had written years ago on a scrap of paper, a Rumi quote, R-U-M-I. It said, "I am not my hair, I am not my skin. I am the soul within." And I went, how beautiful is that? So how we communicate. So when I look in the mirror now, I tell myself, you're gorgeous. I and that's nothing to do with vanity. I just love who I am. It took me a long time to be here. That's why, growing up gay in the 50s, well, that was rough. I had to pretend to hate gay people to survive in high school and sneak away to gay bars on the weekends. I could have been somebody. I was at the Stonewall. I was around the corner from the Stonewall with one of my artist boyfriends the night the Stonewall got busted. I said, I could have been somebody. Okay, then we have Saturn in Capricorn now. It's beautiful. Saturn just went direct the other day. Actually, this morning at 4:10 this morning here on the West Coast. Saturn, after 5 months now, we had a chance. Now it's time to go ahead with all kinds of material projects. So I'm saying for the next few weeks now with this grand trine, and then also Uranus and Taurus backing up into Aries, but still in Earth now. So that's a lot of loud and clear Earth. So it's time to cycle up, recycle, clean, start healthy new habits. And collectively, Jeff Sessions, I gotta say this, I heard some really cool dude on MSNBC the other day say something that just, he said, Jeff Sessions is the kind of evil that people have been willing to die to stop. He has got to go because people saying he can't be fired, otherwise, Donald Trump will, get some. Mueller won't be able to finish. And I agree. He's responsible for how much heartbreak children will now hundreds, 500, 6, who knows, will. And ICE is still going strong. These kids are orphaned. Who knows the psychological damage? I think after 9/11, we would put two and two together and realize, let's not make people hate us so much. But what did we do? We started this war that, as they said, Halliburton's making big money off of this war. Yes, Sessions is the kind of evil that people have been. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. That's a slap into the face for anybody who's read a history book or has relatives who are people of color who are descendants of slaves who were hung, and the story there. And Jefferson, as I said, Rosie O'Donnell said something that stuck in my head the other day when she said, the news isn't fake. There's no, MSNBC and CNN. That's legitimate news, and local news so far here, at least in California. Our network stations or whatever we get is pretty, but it's slow. It's slow. It's not fake. It's slow. The other day I saw someone on CNA. Reminds me, these guys they got on there are so good looking, but I always say to myself, how could you be so good looking and have such a little brain? Yeah, this guy was interviewing Spike Lee, and he said to Spike Lee, so you think racism exists? This was just last week or 2 weeks ago. He says, so he looks him right in the eye and says, so you think racism is a real thing? And Spike Lee says, yeah, yeah, I think it is. And I'm laughing because it's sad. So maybe it's a nervous laugh, but this guy actually, I think it was either Como or that other one. I think they're all interchangeable. They're both very good-looking men. Traper there. Jake Traper or whatever his Tapper. Anyway, this guy looks right into Spike Lee's face and he goes, I don't see it. Where are you living in? Disneyland or something? I don't understand these people. They don't see it. I see it in San Francisco. I see it all the time. So anyway, I don't know, being alert. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. Yeah, that was Frederick Bastiat, Bastiat. When the rich rob the poor, it's called business. When the poor fight back, it's called violence. See, that's what's going on with Kaepernick now, taking the knee to, put awareness to the injustice of the male, blacks being shot by the police, the injustice there. And JFK said, those who try to make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. That's why, above all, we cannot match that low energy. We have to continue whatever we do, like non-violent. Like literally, when I remember years ago when I found myself in a state facility in Florida. Oh man, it was the worst experience of my life. And I realized then I had to just take it, but boy, I paid my dues. I've been around the block, like I met the first psychic I met in my late 20s there after my first Saturn return. She looked at me and she said, well, nobody told you could jump over the abyss. You jumped right in it. Yeah, I needed the experience, I knew I'd get through it, and I knew my life would come together later in life, so everything's fine. Ordering ICE to tear children, calling cannabis now an alternative cure for many, many kinds of cancers and all kinds of things. And it goes on and on, but just Sessions is a white supremacist, and I know that, I could tell. You know, they're not fooling me one iota. Okay, I want to spend a couple of minutes and then we'll get back to astrology. But this is called The Power Through Constructive Thinking. It was written in 32. This particular copy I got my hands on, I got this like, I don't know, 30 years ago. And then I was, I hate to admit it, but I hadn't cleaned this little area for like, I guess, 30 years. And then I found this old dusty book and I went, oh man, what a treat. And then I started, I said, man, I got to remind people about this. Okay, what he says here about, first of all, we'll start with reincarnation. We're just going to go in one paragraph here, but I thought it was really important because most people know about reincarnation. If not, look it up. You will not only come back, but you will probably meet some of your present associates again, particularly if there is an emotional link, either of love or hatred between you. Love will take care of itself, semicolon, but you must get rid of all hatred out of your heart if you do not want to renew disagreeable contracts. Well, contacts, but as a psychic, we see contracts. You know, a lot of times, as I've said many times, when I do big fairs or art gallery plays, I don't do much of that anymore because being around drunks is not my idea of a fun night anymore. I've grown, you know, I've grown. But anyway, yeah, I see contracts, you know, I guess they're testing me. A lot of women will sit down with me and they'll say, do you see love in my life? Do you see a new man in my life? And I'll say, well, you're married, right? Well, we have an open marriage. And I was like, oh God, you know, goodbye. Okay, The Great Adventure, that's another good chapter in this book, but we're going to get right to the golden key. Okay, let's get to the golden key. Where is, I had this all set up here. Misunderstandings and disappointments arise when people mistake the teachings for some kind of elaborate conjuring trick. When a man supposes that by a wave of a hand or the repetition of an incantation, his circumstances can be changed for the better, without any corresponding change in his own mentality, he is doomed to the disappointment he has not come into truth, and the truth movement has nothing for him. See, in the 30s, the truth movement, of which Emmett Fox was one of the founders there, was all about the truth, those that, you know, God is wonderful. Like this astronaut went to, the first thing he said was, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. You know, Buddha, Jesus, they all knew God was whatever you want to call your higher power there, the ultimate truth, the inconceivable love. Like our human minds cannot conceive of the love. Animals can. And that's why I love being around birds, dogs, cats. People seem to have the impression that the sole object of metaphysical study is to overcoming of difficulties, but suppose that is to lose all sense of proportion. The truth is to be sought for its own sake. The knowledge of truth is its own reward. This is one of those material gifts like patience, unconditional love, forgiveness. See, when you leave, you can't take nothing with you but your soul, as John Lennon said. So, you feel once you get knowledge, you feel nothing but sympathy for that pathetic, wretched man-in-law who's presumed this illegitimate presidency. I'm not really sweating it because I believe that what Mueller's going to come out with is going to declare this whole regime, the whole Trump administration, as illegitimate. And I hope that's hey, I'm going there. It's my thoughts. Even people think I'm crazy even thinking that. It could happen. Hey, we're living in, things are more like they are now than they ever have been before. And things are actually very dangerous now. Very, very dangerous. We've got the most powerful man on the planet now who's mentally deranged, who's totally out of his mind, you know. I believe this is what we have to do now. There's so many gifts here. As I said, you can't have this paradigm change without, but instead of giving into the fear now, see this as now, just be grateful by the grace of God. There go I. You know, people understand now. What is good is all this money? You know, and all surround yourself with gold. Where he's got no one who loves him. He takes, you know, everything. There's a book called Born Trump where these financial arrangements with his wives and every child they produce for him, they get so many hundreds of thousands and some obscene amount of money. I mean, everything has like bisexuals, bisexuals. He's a sick, desperate. Well, you know, I'm not going to waste my little time on this show, but that book I had here, it's now out there. A lot of people are talking about it by 25 psychiatrists talking about how he's a danger, and he really is a menace. He is a menace. The truth is to be sought for its own sake. So when you understand, years ago when I first became conscious in '82 after my out-of-body experience, I was living on a guy's guest room on Haight Street, and there was this used bookstore right across on Haight Street, Upper Haight Street, south of Masonic. It's not there anymore. They closed. And I bought these like for 10, 15 cents because I had no money, but I would buy these books by Swami Vivekananda. And they said, all these guys at that time said, when you learn these laws and are tempted to manipulate them for your own personal good, drop that as quickly as you would a snake that turned into a stick that turned into a deadly serpent. So this guy's saying the same thing in his own way. The real object of the seeker should be the development of his own higher faculties and powers. In a word, his spiritual evolution. So we're all at different stages of evolution, and we see, you don't realize it's hard to be a barometer for our own growth, especially spiritual growth, but when we see someone is obviously so low, I mean, he's like so low, we had to ooze, like there was a Bush and Cheney lowered the bar so low that Donald Trump was able to ooze under it, his oily self, and that's why, okay, so misunderstandings, like I say, it's so important to remind yourself. When I tell people, so when I read this after like 30 years of finding it again, I said, perhaps I'm misleading unintentionally people who are thinking, well, if I keep on saying something, well, you know, that's manipulating the law. You know, what you don't want to be doomed, you know. The man who drinks, for example, is certain to ruin his business, and you cannot help him as long as he prefers whiskey to prosperity. Of course, he is trying to give up whiskey. You can help him do that. He goes on and on. Yeah, there is an atrocity, bad temper, where there is, he goes on and on, working on your character defects. Okay, so let's get to the golden key here, and then we got a few more minutes. I rambled on. Yeah, now that eclipse season is over, the next 6 or 8 months are all what happens. So the show's on YouTube about the eclipses. Those are the last 3 months I've been here. You can check them out. I don't want to repeat them. I'm not in love with the sound of my own voice, as I'm often fond of saying to people sometimes when they break my chops calling, and they have no interest in getting any kind of a psychic. They just want to, you know, condescendingly tell me something. The golden key, 137. Okay, here we go. Do-do-do-do-do. Here's a little music as we get in here. St. Augustine said, "Thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they repose in thee." The young and the restless. So what he's saying here is scientific prayer will enable you sooner or later to get yourself or anyone else out of any difficulty on the face of the earth. It is the golden key to harmony and happiness. Yeah, you can get all this on YouTube. I just want to wet your whistle to it. God is omnipotent, and man in his image and likeness has the dominion over all things. This is his inspired teaching, and it is intended to be taken literally. It is in its face value. Man means every man, and so is the ability to draw on this power. JFK said something interesting. The word where is it? It's worth. JFK said, when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. Something to ponder. And Fox says, if you have no time for prayer and meditation, you will have lots of time for sickness and trouble. So take a few minutes and meditate on a flower or anything. When you raise your consciousness, even for a moment, you raise the consciousness of the whole planet. And let go of who you think you are and be open. What do you got to lose? You can always pick yourself up again. But they say someone could only really upset us if it triggers something in us. And as I said, there's a lot of as I say, Donald Trump, I go, by the grace of God, thank God, with on my worst day, is better than Donald Trump and all his money and gold. It's sad. And as I said, I'm not giving in to the fear. I don't believe we're doomed. I believe this is what it takes for the paradigm changes that are going to happen. We had an ism: if you care for society, you're a socialist. If you care for the community, you're a communist. We slap that ism on, and then we file it away. There's nothing wrong with LeBron James, sharing his downward mobility. He's still living large, but he's instead of an extra Rolls Royce, he's treating these kids to an education. Now that's downward mobility at its best. This omnipotent God and man is, whoever you are, whether you may be the golden key of harmony is your key in your hand now. But it's not an easy key to turn, because the scientific prayer is God's who works and not you. So your particular limitation or weaknesses are no account in the process. You are only a channel through which divine action takes place, and your treatment will really be just the getting of yourself out of the way. Beginners often get startling results at the first time of trying. For all that is absolutely essential is to have an open mind and sufficient faith to try the experiment. Apart from that, you may hold any views on religion or none. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. This is the complete rule, period. Sounds easy, but it's not. And if only you will do this, the trouble, whatever it is, will presently disappear. It makes no difference what kind of a trouble it is. But so many people just keep on banging that drum of negativity. If the right one don't get you, the left one will. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Look at this, that man who just died, big crippled guy who influenced all science. That's called in Western meta science now. He was the greatest mind. He was a twisted soul who believed that if extraterrestrial life exists, they exist to eat us. I mean, the man is living, well, he's gone now, but I'm just saying, that's not I know the universe. I'm a galactic being, a shaman. I don't know where this guy is. His idea is twisted, to say the word. Work by rehearsing anything or everything you know about God. God is wisdom, truth, inconceivable love. God is present everywhere, has infinite power, knows everything, and so on. It matters not how well you may think or you understand these things. Go over them repeatedly. Your object is to drive the thought of the difficulty right out of your consciousness for a few moments at least, substituting it for the thought of God. Like the other day, I was laying there and I said, okay, I got this thing going on my face because I'm stressed out. I am calm, I am serene. And then my bird walked over and I started playing with her, and she, it was a real moment. That's all you have to do is just think of God. That's what happens when you let go of all. A lot of times I'll be in a hospital and someone's getting ready to die, and I'll say to them, okay, doctor, do you want to spend your last day miserable? And the next thing you know, they're, happier. Yeah, because doctors, I work so hard on people, getting people hope right up until the end. I never want them to not have hope that they're going to survive their death, and doctors will come right in after I leave and tell them hope is cruel. That's what they teach them in medical school. And these kids that are running these clinics now, these death mills, don't be well. Work on your, especially if you're a cigarette smoker, it is nothing glamorous. Arrange with your doctor to walk through an intensive care. And I'm sure every major hospital in San Francisco, you'll see it's like room after room. You walk by and they're all on, as I said, it's machinery. You have to be an IBM technician. They're just like keeping a slab of beef from rotting. And it's because there's money in that. So I owe a lot of my spirit. I'm not, as I said, the paradox is there's a group of women that are cloistered nuns at the Cristo Rey Chapel, and whenever I find the need to really connect to home, I go there, and I see them behind the screens. I'm sure I've been going there since '82. So I'm sure a lot of the women, the sisters there are no longer, they're probably gone. Who knows? They were probably old. But they sing to God, and I only use them when I really need help, like cigarette smoking. And I believe me, kicking heroin was a piece of cake compared to cigarettes. You don't like to see people shooting up all over the streets of San Francisco. I see the same thing when I see people smoking tobacco, because I see where that's going. It's not pretty. It's not. There's nothing. I don't want to. I don't want to be as they say in the program. They used to say, "Well, don't take my inventory." Now I'm giving you a word to the wise. Smoke as much cannabis as you like. I've known to chain smoke cannabis, and my lungs are cleaner than a 12-year-old's. So. I love you. I love you. Be kind to yourself with all this Virgo stuff. The Virgo full moon is, new moon is in San Francisco, September 9th. And then I'll be back here, God willing, on the 20th. And we'll be able to talk about the harvest moon in Aries coming up on the 24th. Use the dream state. Oh yeah, I was looking at America's birth chart, and all of this Earth energy is happening on our Saturn, in our midheaven, crossing our take responsibility house. I love you. Bye.